Cue that beat.
This is what happens. You guys just hear something Eagles, and then it's like a dog. You see a squirrel. It's just,
I would say 75% of all NFL quarterbacks can be dialed down to different flavors of Kirk Cousins. They're all just Kirk Cousins. All of them.
So there's conditions.
No, I absolutely understand do not draft list. If someone's on my do not draft list, I'm not drafting him.
Hey guys, welcome into the Mind the Gap podcast. It is going to be a good day for all you fantasy football addicts, all of you who are getting ready for our dynasty drafts like Ryan, Tyler, and I in a league where I clearly have the best team. We're going to be talking running back. Irrelevant. This is dynasty. It's built for the future.
And I'm winning in the future. I had Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson, arguably the two most valuable players in the league.
You do. You have a very good team. I just wanted to tick you off a little bit. We're going to be talking running backs and tight ends today. You saw that on the beginning of our show. It is going to be a fun show. A lot of really talented players in this offensive weapon preview, basically. We're going to do the same thing we did for our last show that was defensive backs. We're going to break it down into top 10 4 tiers, top 10, first round, day 2, and late round gems / the rest. Just a collection of everyone else that we think is NFL top 5 rounds kind of worthy. A little bit of housekeeping. There is no longer going to be a Thursday show. We're not going to be recording on a Thursday. I think that usually gets out Friday, Saturday, depending on editing. So we're going to be recording once a week on Monday. We're going to figure out what we're doing on the NFL draft later. But stay tuned to our socials for an upcoming website, articles if they're going to be coming, because they will be coming soon. We have yet to do linebackers. That will be an article. Go check it out when it comes out. I believe that's it. So, yeah, let's get to the show. We got to get out of here pretty quick, Tyler, because you got a Florida game coming up. You're wearing the hoodie. You are absolutely prepped for the show. I mean, it's a natty tonight.
it is. I feel good about it. Duke was so scary to look at on the other side of that bracket, but as good as Houston is, I do think this is a better matchup for us. They're not as talented of a team. So I think as long as we keep the turnovers to a minimum, we have a better offense. We have the best player in the game in Walter Clayton Jr. And I think we can take it out. Dude,
that boy,
he's so good.
He's awesome. I had picked Florida to win it, but the way Duke was playing, I would have picked Duke, and I would have bet on them if it was you versus them. I don't know how they lost that game.
Just insanity. Everything went wrong for them. But what was crazy is not everything went right for Houston. They had the guy get the technical foul for trying to steal it from the inbounder.
Right.
They missed a couple shots. Like it was not this perfect comeback, and still Duke was able to lose it.
I think the big thing for them is like they did not that late call on Cooper, the over the back call. The ref was just looking to call something on somebody. They lost the game themselves, but I don't think the refs helped them at all. Let's talk running backs. So there are two in both of our tiers, all three of our tiers. We have the exact same tier 1, tier 2, and that is Ashton Jeanty at 1 in his own tier, his top 10. And then in the first rounders tier 2, that is purely and simply Omarion Hampton out of UNC. These are the two best running backs in the class. They're both guys who are probably going to go in the first round. I'd imagine one in the top 7 to 8. And then Omarion Hampton, I think, doesn't fall past 22 to the Broncos because I love that selection for them. Ashton Jeanty, he's just a mold-breaking running back. He is undefinable in the way that he plays. He was in talk for the Heisman. Tyler, you are the high. I can't even say you're the highest. You have him where we all have him, which is one of the best 3 players in this class.
Just an amazing player to watch. We talk about small school guys and how does that translate. Jeanty was able to do the exact same things that he was doing in the Mountain West against Oregon, against Penn State. Even though he didn't put out maybe the yardage against Penn State, the way that he was making people miss in phone booths was insane. There's so many stats that you can point to that are just mind-blowing from this past year with Jeanty. One I just cited, he had a 217.6 elusiveness rating, which is a PFF signature stat that throws in a bunch of stats with missed tackles forced and how many attempts you had, things like that, and spits out a number of how elusive you are. The higher you are, the better. The next closest guy this year was Corey Kiner from the University of Cincinnati with 163.8. So that is 40 points higher than anybody else. 5.42 yards after contact per rush. He had 43 more missed tackles forced than the next closest guy, which was Kiner as well. Basically, any stat you look at, he is blowing out any other running back in this class. The contact balance is insane. He's got the long speed. He's got the short area quickness. He's a creative guy. And the last thing that not a lot of people are hitting on, I think he can be a better receiver or utilized more in the receiving game than he was this past year. In past years at Boise State, he got more catches and more, passes thrown to him. For whatever reason, they didn't want to do it this year. He played a little bit of receiver in high school. So he's got that type of catching ability. So I think even there's a ceiling that he can get to that's higher than where he is right now, which for any prospects. But I think there are clear things that he could get better at or just be used more in.
I think it's crazy. I mean, the stat that everybody's been saying, and it's probably not your first time hearing this if you're the audience. Jeanty led all of college football in rushing yards. And Jeanty, after he got hit, Jeanty post-contact was second in all rushing yards in the NCAA. So if you just took away all of Jeanty's runs before he made contact, he would still lead the NCAA in yards. Unreal. He is the comp I have for him. Like, this is one of those. You guys know those like inflatable punching bag type things where you hit them and they just go boing and then just bounce back, right? They just bounce back to where in Kung Fu Panda, Po hits the thing and it bounces back and hits him in the face. Right. That's Jeanty. He just is complete at all times on his feet. It's like he's just suction cupped to the ground and he cannot fall over. It's unreal. Unreal.
And
I was going to ask, did you guys have any cons? I didn't.
Pass blocking, but that's a stretch.
Receiving threat, maybe even. What I'm curious about, and guys, we haven't even talked about this. We keep saying, oh, Jeanty to the Raiders at 6, maybe to the Bears at 10. How high, realistically, do you think someone drafts him? Because I just checked. That's why I was on my phone. Nick Chubb still hasn't signed back to the Browns.
Oh, he does not. He's not going to.
I was going to say, I think because there are players that are in the same tier as him talent-wise that are at more premium positions with Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. So even if the Browns didn't go quarterback, I feel like they would go one of those two instead. But I don't know, because he is that level of player to be in the same tier as Hunter and as Carter.
According to the mock draft database, consensus has him going 6 to the Raiders. And that's about 58% of mocks agree. So just under 6 out of 10 mocks have him going to the Raiders. I think that's the highest we see him because the Jaguars have too many issues that running backs can't solve. They're not good enough for a running back. Patriots, that feels like a waste of resources with Will Campbell, possibly Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter being available for them. Or if you want to say Membu is your best tackle, great, take Membu there at 4. I think latest word, like official word, has I think Hunter going 2 to the Browns. I don't know if that's legit, if that's smoke, but that's the report that came out today. I don't remember who it's from. I'll try and find that while I'm talking to give proper accreditation.
And I like Tracy in New York, so.
Well, do the Giants do the Saquon thing again and just draft a running back high just because,
It doesn't make sense for them to. They have so many issues, and that's not fixing all of them.
No.
Oh, I'm really trying to give proper credit by figuring out who said that. It was either Rappaport or Schefter is what I saw. I think it was Rapp. But if it wasn't, I apologize, and I am clearly not a proper member of the media for not giving proper credit. Yeah, it's unreal how good Jeanty is. Moving on to his competition, Omarion Hampton, who number 2 running back on our boards out of UNC. Hampton is the first of many explosive power backs, right? That's the new archetype mold that I'm calling it. I talked to you guys about this right before we got on. If someone said power back very recently to me, my first thought would be, cool, LeGarrette Blount. A guy who is a bowling ball, a wrecking truck. He's going to drive through your face and imprint your face mask on your nose and just mow you down for 4 to 5 yards. Marshawn Lynch, the Beast Quake, right? That kind of running. In this class, there aren't many. Cam Scadaboo is a different conversation, but there's not many guys who are slow but yet powerful. There's a lot of guys who are so powerful it translates into speed, and that's Hampton. That's Johnson. That's Henderson a little bit later. There's guys who are so powerful that they, like a Saquon Barkley type. I don't want to compare them to Saquon Barkley, but Saquon translates his power into speed. These guys do as well. Hampton does as well. He is so powerful, it makes him one of the most dangerous players on the field.
Yeah, good vision as well. I love how he gets in the right gaps in the running lanes, and you have to be really disciplined against him because there's a play that comes to mind when they're playing NC State and the linebacker goes into the wrong gap for the run fit. Hampton finds it, and boom, he's out the gate for a 70-yard touchdown. And that's something that you get, as well as him just pushing the pile to turn 3 yards into 5 yards or 5 yards into 8 yards. Just he always falls forward because he runs with such a physical nature about him. He runs angry, breaks a ton of tackles. It's not as cool as Jeanty, this stat, but his yards after contact would have been 15th in the nation for this class. So just to give you another kind of peek into what he does as a back, he thrives after contact. And this was on an offense in UNC that was just bad. At no point did they have good quarterback play, good O-line play, nothing. It was just Hampton carrying this entire team and the entire load on offense.
You're talking about the most recent season, right?
Yes.
Post Drake May?
Right.
Okay, I was just making sure you weren't taking a shot at that guy.
No. Dude, Drake May was number 2 overall player.
I know. We talked about this.
So but no, this past year, when Drake May's gone, Josh Downs is gone, pretty much anybody that you can remember in the past few years being good at North Carolina on offense is in the NFL now, except for Hampton. And so he was carrying this team and this offensive load basically by himself.
Yeah, and that's funny because, again, Aaron, you might hate this, but Hampton is what I envision a prototypical back. I know he's a little tall for NFL levels, but
I mean, he's 6 foot. I don't say that's too tall for a back. You want 6? I would say 5'11" to 6'1".
Okay, so Tyler, you brought up the point of to exceed at the next level, you need an elite trait. And Hampton was actually one of the guys I thought was more well-rounded in this class and lacks an elite trait. So it was really hard to like nitpick anything in particular. I think everything in his game could take a next step, but this guy's phenomenal. One thing was he could lose 5 to 10 pounds for his play style. I think, yes, he could be a power back, but I also see him as an elusive back, like Aaron mentioned in the archetypes. But he was an early breakout, 1,500 rush yards as a sophomore. Tyler mentioned he was great after contact, plus 1,000 yards after contact both seasons as a starter. So not just this past season. He also did it with Drake May. And then 38 receptions, which I had to look, was second on the team.
Jeez, really?
Yeah.
That's good for him, but sad for UNC. I do want to add, Combine backs up his explosiveness. 10-10 broad jump in the 97th percentile with a 4.46 40, and I don't know exactly. Let me pull up his 10-yard split, but like he showed out, and it translates, and that's what do we say about the Combine in the preseason? It's only good for confirming your priors. The Combine's good for confirming the priors of Hampton, and that's nice. 10-yard split was a 1.54, which is top tier.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Did we ever? So I've seen people compare and put Hampton above Jeanty. I think for a few of the things that we are nitpicking Jeanty for, which would be pass catching and pass blocking, right? And they would put Hampton ahead. We're good. They would put Hampton ahead of Jeanty, and that's not consensus, but I've seen it before. I don't remember who it was, but was there ever a moment where either of you considered that? Because I haven't.
There was a point in time where, yes, I think some people thought it was a lot closer than some might think. But no, I have Hampton, let's see, at 25 and Jeanty at 3. So
Okay.
we're talking about 22 players in between them.
Yeah, consensus is 24 for Hampton. So you're right at consensus. I think I'm going to have him probably in the 22, 23-ish range. Right a little bit ahead of consensus. Tyler, where are you at on him? And did you ever consider it?
I had him in the 20s, and no, it just the only thing I guess that you could say is Hampton is that prototypical size versus Jeanty being a shorter but that just doesn't matter. It's just a thing that's cool to see on the back of his trading card, but it doesn't actually affect the way that they play at all.
Yeah. Moving on to day 2, guys. So we had a few. This is a lot of day 2 prospects. I'm gonna
So many.
so many, unreal, and they're all like quality players, which I think is the craziest part of this. Tyler has 9, right? Not 3 through 12. That is
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if I'm counting
10?
correctly.
1,
Unless
2,
it was
3,
Devin
4,
Neal in
5,
my
6,
late round
7,
gems.
8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10.
10.
Devin Neal's your last guy in day 2. So I'm going to list off Tyler's, right? And then Ryan and I are just shorter. So here are all of Tyler's. Caleb Johnson, Iowa. Cam Scatabo, AZ State. Travion Henderson, Ohio State. Damian Martinez from Miami, Florida, the University of Miami. Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State. Baishal
Tootin.
Baishal. Huh. Baishal Tootin out of VTech. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Brashard Smith out of SMU. RJ Harvey out of UCF. He's fun. Devin Neal out of Kansas being your last one. Ryan and I have a smaller list. I think I only have 6. Ryan has 7. But there's a lot of guys in this tier. And Ryan, a few episodes ago, you said Hall of Mid, right? It's one of your coined phrases for this class. Is this a Hall of Mid, or is this out of necessity? Being how this, are there a lot of guys here because they're good, or are there a lot of guys here because they're middling and the same?
I think a little bit of both, and I say that because no one
He
wants to draft
he
a
never
running
just
back.
answers the question. Huh?
Nope.
People don't want to draft a running back in the first round nowadays because then that means they have to pay him a good chunk of money.
Right.
And I agree with that for first round picks, but no, that's just where this class is lined up, where a good chunk of their players are day 2 picks. I don't think, I mean, besides maybe like Judkins, Sampson, and Henderson, which Aaron also likes coined the term drunken first rounder. I could see all 3 of those players sneaking into like 31 or 32.
I was so close to putting Henderson and Johnson in my first round tier. So close.
No,
I
can't with Johnson, but
Henderson especially has been getting some smoke throughout the process don't be surprised if he gets taken 30 or 31, just like sneaks in the back end there.
I was not a healthy amount close to putting those guys in my first round tier. I talked myself out of it. Same way I talked myself out of Elijah Arroyo in the first round tier.
I'm glad.
That was also middling. All right. I like him.
Listen, you talked
like
yourself
him
out of it,
too.
so we're all good. We're all good.
Yeah, we're chilling. But to agree with Ryan, there are 3 guys here I'd view as drunken first rounders, which is Henderson, Johnson, Judkins. The guys that you're like, you had a few beers and you're like, you know what? I'm taking him at 29. I'm taking him at 30. And I would be like, cool. I don't think that that's crazy. But there's a lot of guys. There's Dylan Sampson, RJ Harvey, and Cam Scatabo, for me at least, who I view as solidly in this tier of are going to go on in rounds 2 and 3. And I'm going to be okay with it. Talking about Henderson and Judkins, and we'll throw Johnson in here as well, as like this consensus tier of group of running backs. They should be in a tier of their own, but we're only doing 4 tiers. Judkins at 42 or 51, Henderson at 42, and then Johnson at 57. So that's Henderson, Judkins, Henderson, Judkins, Johnson on consensus as a group of 3. What do we think? Like, what is separating these guys? Because I feel like some of them, at least Henderson and Johnson, have a similar-ish game. Johnson's more closer to Hampton than Henderson, but they are all similarly ranked for at least me. You guys have more of a break than I do, but like Tyler has Johnson at 3, Ryan has him at 7. Tyler has Judkins at 7, Ryan has him at 3. Henderson is for all 3 of us in the 5 to 3 range. What are we looking at these 3 backs, Ryan? Because I know that you don't like Johnson a good amount.
I think that this specific pack of running backs, there is little to no consensus because everyone likes a different play style. So someone might value a power back more than a receiving back.
It's flavor more than grade, is what you're saying. It's flavor of running back instead of grading your running
You
back.
could put it that way. I like Judkins because he's a power back. Henderson is a little bit more of a receiving threat and an elusive back. But I have Judkins at 3, Sampson at 4, Henderson at 5. So there is little to no consensus on these guys because I feel like, again, everyone has a different play style that they want on their team. I don't know what it's going to look like on draft day because different teams are going to want a different back. The Chargers just released Dobbins and Edwards. So I don't know what their plan is. We just talked about how the
Well,
Browns.
Najee Harris, apparently.
Yeah, they have Najee Harris, so maybe they get a receiving threat. So it just depends on what these teams need in terms of play style. But we just talked about how the Browns still haven't signed Nick Chubb. Are they worried about the injuries? I probably would. They have Jerome Ford. Who's going to be his complement? So we could see a lot of these running backs go very early day 2, just due to need.
I'm imagining and picturing in my head a run of 4 to 5 running backs within 8 to 10 picks, where we see Henderson, Judkins, Sampson, and Scadabo all go.
It's going to be whoever wants to pull the trigger first because I think teams want to wait as long as possible because this is such a deep running back class, but then they don't want to miss out when the run actually starts. And it's going to be interesting to see which team values which type of back because the Chargers, right, I would see them taking Hampton in a heartbeat if they wanted to do it at 22. But, as it gets later into their second round pick, what does that exactly look like for them? Do you want to talk about some of these?
I feel Judkinsy. The Chargers. That's just my gut, but I don't know how we feel about that. Tyler, what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, do we want to talk specifically about some of these guys?
Yeah, do it. Get into Johnson. Why do you love him? Why is he at 3?
So Johnson is amazing. So the big knock on him, and that's what I'm going to take out first, is that he's not an explosive runner. And he is not a guy who's going to get you an 80-yard run. That's not his game. What he's going to get you a lot of is doubles and triples, if not home runs. PFF tracks breakaway runs as 15 yards. So if that gives you any perspective, you just don't get to run 80 yards a lot in college. And then especially not in the NFL with how disciplined people are with run fits. It's a lot of, hey, an explosive run play is 10 yards, 15 yards. Do you know who had the number 2 breakaway percentage in the class? That would be Caleb Johnson. 56% of his runs, of the qualifying runs he had, were 15 or more yards.
Wait, 56 of his run?
56%?
That's a lot.
That is a lot. And there, honestly, it seems like a lot. It's number 2 in the class. You can check it out on PFF. It is, more than some of these other prospects, but 56 is not this amazingly wild number. I don't think there was a decent group like Jeanty was there and Hampton was there some too. But number 2 in the class, he just hits a lot of doubles, which is what you need to do at the NFL level. He consistently wins the corner, especially in wide zone. And he did all this, guys. Caleb Johnson, according to Warner and Sharp, faced an average of 7.1 box defenders. That's number 2 in the class. Only 28% of his runs were against a light box. That's lowest in the class.
Well, that's because Iowa uses 2 tight ends 90% of the time.
Because they can't throw the ball at all. They consistently are like, what if we have a bad quarterback and a bad passing game and see what happens? And they still win 8 to 10 games. So they got something going. But
so do the Steelers, but I mean,
they're honestly pretty similar. Yellow and black too.
I'm not going to deny that. I saw the Ringer has this on him, and it says his running style, this is Johnson, in his own words, is, quote, 1 cut, get vertical. I don't like juking. If I have to, then I will, but it's not my preference. I like running over people. I like stiff arming. I like outrunning, catching the ball out of the backfield.
Yep.
So 1
Because
cut, get vertical.
You know who was number 2 in yards after contact per attempt behind Ashton Jeanty? That would also be Caleb Johnson. He is well built at 6'2", 225. 1 cut is very decisive in the zone game and goes. I wonder if a Shanahan team is somebody that's going to take him just running a ton of wide zone. He's got good change of direction for his size. That's not his game, not his forte, but
I like
there's a play in the Minnesota game where somebody shoots a gap on outside zone. He makes the miss. He recovers his balance because he had to kind of jump in the air to do it. Boom, gets vertical, touchdown on an 18-yard run. Another one of those doubles we talk about. Now, there are cons, obviously. The vision is fine, more than great. He needs some time to get going. His contact balance when his legs get hit initially, so somebody just breaks through the line initially, is not great. But if you give him time in some of those wide zone plays to get going, to see the gap and hit that, he is so good. And that's why I have him at number 3, is that's just super translatable when it comes to the NFL.
I don't know. I love the yards after contact talk. Like, don't get me wrong. I am a sucker for someone who just plays with their head. It, you know what I'm getting at. Anyways, so
You like intellectual runners.
yeah, I wanted to harp Johnson on the measurables, and the 10-yard split was just abysmal at 1.62, but that's just not what we're looking for out of a power back. But it is still below average. So he skipped the agility test and the vert. So the test that he did do was still below average. So I don't know why he chose to do that. Agility below average on film, even for a power back. Already said that. And I actually had in my notes, I could see him in a starting role maybe after like 2 to 3 years, but I'm not drafting you in the first 2 rounds to be a backup running back and then start in the 2-3 years. I would feel more comfortable in the 3rd round, specifically the middle of the 3rd round. I just think that would be a safe, like, sweet spot for him right there. I have him 72 on my big board. That will obviously fluctuate a little bit depending on when we finish linebackers. But yeah, big boards are almost done. So I feel very confident that that's like kind of like a good spot for him because so many of these other running backs have better elite traits than Caleb Johnson.
So Tyler, talking
Do they?
about that,
Because he was like number 2 in a lot of the stats
I'm with Tyler.
brought up. Sorry.
I thought it was a little inflated. Again, Iowa didn't run the ball a ton. Throw the ball a ton. So they were running it with 2 tight ends 90% of the time. And I just felt like, obviously, it's a numbers game. So you're going to be getting a good chunk of yardage every single time with 2 tight ends in the game. And they're also set up for that. Like, think like 2013 Georgia Tech, where they just, like, no one could stop the run. Virginia Tech struggled mightily. Bud Foster's defense, one of the greatest defensive coordinators of all time, genuinely just could not figure out how to stop the run with Georgia Tech. Same thing that like Army, Navy do sometimes.
The triple option.
Caleb Johnson is not in a triple option offense by any means. But
So your argument is that Johnson is...
I thought it was inflated a tad. It wasn't immensely. Again, I have him over Cam Scatterbo still. Like, there's not a huge drop off.
Yeah, but you have him behind Bashaw Tootin.
Okay, I just love Tootin.
Okay. We'll get to that in a second. Tyler, I was looking at the draft order. How do you feel about 43, the Niners, in the 2nd round? 43 overall for Johnson. I was looking at Shannon, or 42. The Jets have an opening there, and I don't know what they're doing. They just
No.
What?
Well,
We're not going to get a 4th running back in there.
Well, they just talked about. There's been rumors and reports today that Breece Hall might be moving.
So if that is true,
I'm just saying there's reports. I'm throwing names at the wall, seeing what sticks. Clearly, that one didn't.
well, the Niners, I think, probably have bigger issues than running back, but I would love it for him. Like,
Fair.
if he ended up on the 49ers, I think that's a great spot for him.
Bengals at 49 have Mixon, and then behind him, Brown. The Dolphins at 48 just lost Mostert
with the Texans.
Mixon is
you're
with the
right.
Texans.
Oh my gosh. Okay, dude. people move too much for me. I feel like an old man.
Oh, dude. Now I know why you don't watch college football. If you think these people are moving too
You
much.
have no idea how hard I did not grow up watching college football. I have no stake in any team. The school I went to is Liberty, and they don't play anybody. Why would I care? And it's just I watch college football for the draft, and players move way too much, so I only pay attention to the top 150 that I'm going to know are going to be in the NFL.
Transfer portal is crazy. TJ Finley, for example, is at Tulane. That's his 5th school in 6 years. There's also a college basketball guy who went, I might be messing the order up, but I think he went from Ohio State
To Alabama?
to South Carolina to Ohio State back to South Carolina.
South Carolina, yeah.
I saw that. Okay.
I might have messed up the order, but he bounced back between those 2 schools.
No, that was right.
4 times. Okay, yeah. And it was just, I was like, dude, what is going on?
It's miserable. I don't understand the transfer portal. Like Liberty's best women's basketball player, Asia Boone, who I got the chance to interview. I did a whole short mini doc about her. She was the CUSA Freshman of the Year. She led the team in points and assists, and is just gone. And why would anyone follow college sports? Is I understand the games are entertaining. I will sit and watch it. I can't follow it because it's so difficult to track year after year. The same reason I only follow the Phillies in baseball is because there's too many players on too many teams to track. Too many games.
Fair enough.
That said, Phillies 2-1 against the Dodgers. Come on. And somehow number 2 in the MLB power rankings behind the Dodgers. Make that make sense.
That's $1 in the jar.
Is it?
Is that a Philly?
When did this become a Phillies podcast?
I was just mad. Like Tyler talked about the Gators. Does he get a jar? I did ask him about it.
You asked me the
brought up
question.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Guys,
I think
I love athletes, and probably the second best athlete behind Jeanty with actual measurables, Quinshawn Judkins. And I actually did not find this myself, but I thought it was fun. So he's the first running back ever to hit 11 feet in the broad jump and the vert at his weight, which is 220. That's crazy. That's unheard of. So contact balance is exceptional with the ability to fall forward. That's just a coaching thing. Knows his lateral quickness is a weakness, so he gets upfield very fast, just like a little rocket. No hesitation. One thing I wanted to ask Tyler, you might notice this, but sometimes when he's pass blocking, he doesn't even attempt to pass block. It's a lot of chop blocks, and I'm like trying to think to myself, like he has the strength to block D ends and D tackles. Do you think this was a coaching issue?
Well, it's so weird because I think one of the biggest pros for him is that he is so physical. And even as a blocker, there's a couple times where he's blocking for Henderson or for Howard on a run, and he lays people out. And so I'm not really sure why he does that in pass pro. Because then the other thing I think is, is this a coaching point? But you don't see that with Travion Henderson when he pass protects. So I don't know if it's just a preference
Henderson
thing.
was longer at Ohio State though, if that's a coaching thing.
Yeah, but even still, like in the year, they would have been like, okay, we want you to pass protect like this. So that my only thing is maybe they were just like, hey, however you want to do it, just go for it. Just block the guy. Yeah. But it is weird because he's good at it in the run game, but then maybe I don't know why it wouldn't translate to pass pro.
That's one of the things that I knocked him for. I mean, I have him at 5 behind Henderson and Johnson, and I will keep saying I think they're 3 peas in a pod. I'm willing to switch any of the 3 of them based on how I'm feeling, what side of the bed I wake up on, etc. By the way, it's 2-2-2. All 3 of us have $2 in the jar. I was rummaging through my desk to find my most recent notes where I had that. So it is tied at 2. But yeah, I think Judkins is a fantastic player. I think he's going to be really good. I just worry about his explosiveness and like high-end speed, which we think that the combine was a fluke and fake speed. What did he run at the combine? Wasn't it something crazy?
He ran in the 4.4.
Right. And I think he's a 4.5 player, 4.55-ish. But I also worry about his ability to pass pro. And if he's going to be an all-around balanced back, like I think he is, and I think he can be, I need him to be able to pass block.
Ran a 4.48 with a 1.57 10-yard split, or 1.58, excuse me. 1.57 was the unofficial.
It's fast. It's real fast.
He was moving. Definitely. I said after the combine that was a fake 40. I do stand by that, but he is straight line explosive. That's what I wrote down. And so that's a pro, but it's also a con because if he has to come off the straight line, it's just kind of over. Like he is not a creative runner. There's not really wiggle to his game, which you don't need to because that's just the style of runner he is. But I think it kind of limits what he can do a little bit. The other thing I wrote down, I didn't love the vision. I thought it just wasn't very good. But he does run people over. He is so physical in run blocking. So I think he brings a nasty that every running back room needs. He might just not be the lead back for some of the cons he has.
Let's move on to another guy in this day 2 tier. Our last talking point here, but before we move on to late round, Cam Scatterbo out of Arizona State, who became a household name after his performance in the national in the playoffs. It's weird to have so much playoffs, but I love it. A simple question here. Do we think that his game translates to the NFL? I would argue that not as good as these other three players. Tyler, you have him at 4, ahead of both Ohio State guys, Henderson and Judkins.
Because I think his game does translate.
Okay.
So we'll start with real deal receiving ability. He had 2.1 yards per route run, the second highest in the class. He can catch the ball and then make things happen after the catch. I think that is something that definitely translates to the NFL. While he doesn't have great long speed, again, he's another guy that's not going to go 85 yards for a touchdown. He gets the corner consistently. So if he's running and has to bounce something outside, he will beat the corner to the sideline to be able to pick up, 7 to 10 yards. He did it consistently against Texas. There was one time he got Jahdae Barron, another time he got Malik Muhammad, their other corner. So that's where I think he has enough burst and quickness to make up for not running a 4.45 40-yard dash. And I mean, if you've watched Cam Scatabo, you know this, but his contact balance is just ridiculous. People bounce off of him at all times. He doesn't go down. There's a run against Iowa State where he broke 8 tackles on one play. He did it all in the Texas game. He falls forward too, like we talked about with Hampton, Johnson, and Judkins. All those things are easily translatable for me. And I'm just not going to overthink him because he's not a top tier 40-yard dash guy or 60-yard dash guy. I think he's a really good athlete in every other aspect.
I have him listed as a blue-collar back. He's the kind of guy that's going to bring his lunch pail. He's going to get to work probably 8 to 9 hours on a hot day, and go home. I'm not worried about him consistently showing up. I'm not worried about him reaching his ceiling. I'm worried that his ceiling might not be high enough to succeed at the NFL level.
His comp was interesting. I was looking at PFF to get some of the stats for this, and the comp they had for him was Kyron Williams. I actually like that a lot.
Really?
Kyron is not an explosive guy. You never see him breaking off really pretty much even 35-plus yard runs.
Tiny power back.
But he is smaller too. They both are not, 225 pounds, but they get in there between the tackles, run really physical, and pick up 5 yards. And that's something that is really, really valuable. And they have, I think, a little more juice in the short areas than they get credit for as well.
I think Blake Corum is a fantastic side piece to Kyron.
I really do think Corum's going to take a step up next year, and I hope he does because he's on my dynasty team. But Aaron, before we move on to late gems,
oh yeah, you got to talk about Tootin.
Please talk about Samson and Tootin.
Go ahead, dude. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Okay, so I have Samson at 4 in this.
Dylan
class,
Sampson out of Tennessee
43 overall. Yep. So
Mickey Mouse offense.
I just have a blurb of notes. He was great in games, big games. Versus Bama, he went 26 for 139 and 2 touchdowns. And then versus Georgia, he went 19 for 101 and 1 touchdown. So, I'm not going to give you his full year stats because you just look him up. But he was 4th in the NCAA in team rushing yards. Lateral quickness is great. Lowers the shoulder when necessary. Love that. And a back. His inability to bounce to a new gap kind of goes hand in hand with vision. I think he was a little below average in that area. I don't really know what was happening there, and I would love to ask him. Spin moves are flashy, and it works at the college level, but I don't think his spin moves translate to the NFL level. He kind of does it excessively to the point where you're like, all right, dude, that's enough. So that needs to change. But 4.46 40 at his pro day was expected to be around 4.3. So that was a little kind of concerning. Not a red flag, but just concerning that it was that much of a drop off.
Yeah, I definitely did think he was going to run faster.
Yeah. Haven't seen a bunch of pass catching, but definitely could view him as a receiver, pass catching back in the future. And then he did have a good chunk of scrimmage yards, and we were talking about the explosive runs. He wasn't Caleb Johnson level, but he did have 36 runs of 10-plus yards.
So my questions about Samson, he won 5'8", 200 pounds. So he is a small little bundle of muscle, which I could say he's actually shorter than I am, which is kind of crazy.
Everyone is.
But shorter than me? I'm 5'10", brother. I am perfectly average.
I did not honor the end of that.
What?
Never mind.
I'm so confused.
Dylan Sampson.
Yeah. Anyways, Ryan, so you were talking a lot about his production in college. I worry about how that projects to the NFL because some part of this exercise, part of ranking players, is okay. Great, this is your production in college. We've seen it. Now we are expecting X, and for me, X would be having him. Where do I have Sampson? I have him at 6 overall. So I'm going to have him probably in the 40, 50, 60 range of players when I finish my big board. I'm projecting him to be one of the 60th to 70th best players in this class. Where are you projecting him to go in the NFL? Because I wonder, it sounded a lot like you were basing your argument for him off of his past successes and not for what you think he could be. So what do you think he could be?
I have him 43 in the class. I think he needs to go to a team that would use him on first and second downs. I think pass protection is always an issue for some smaller backs. I think he can hold his ground sometimes, but not every single snap. I would love to see him use it again, first and second down, but I think he gives up the third down role for a bigger back. I would love maybe the Seahawks. I know they have Kenneth Walker.
And Charbonnet, who is fantastic and on my dynasty team, so I have no stake in how he performs.
Fantastic. I was going to say fantastic. Feels like there's a bit of bias there. Huh?
He's one of my favorite players to watch. I love his game. I think he's one of those powerful, explosive players who can break for 80 if he wants to, and I really do like what he can do. He could go explosive, but he's also very talented at those doubles and triples like you were talking about with Johnson.
Yeah. Again, I say the Seahawks as Charbonnet would probably be going out the door, and then they could run a 1-2 committee with Walker and Simpson.
You take it back.
No.
That is, dude, do you actually think Charbonnet is not a starting back in this league?
Probably not.
He hasn't shown it yet, which doesn't mean that he can't. But
I'd put him top.
Okay, because I think in 2 years
42.
he's going to be I think I mark it down. I think in 2 years, minimum, maybe this year, he's going to be a fantasy relevant starting back in this league.
Hasn't he already been in the league for like 3 or 4 years?
No, he's still young.
2, I believe.
Yeah.
2 years? Question mark. Let me see.
So this is his 3rd year.
Yeah, this is his 3rd season. I think him and Walker is more of a 1-2 punch than you're giving it credit for.
I'm looking at his stats right now. He's averaged 4.2 yards per carry. That's like fine. Never gone above 569 yards. That's the most he's had.
He's the number 2 back. Like,
right, but I think that's what we're saying.
Stop.
Is that he is the number 2 back, and that's why
and I think
it's tough.
Always be the number 2 back.
No, I think he's a starter as soon as he gets the proper workload.
I would put him on the same level as Jerome Ford.
No. I'd have him.
You're thinking about it. Like, yes, it works.
I said no out of initial defense. I'm currently defensive. Something I need to work on. Talk to my therapist about it. Thank you. No, Sharps is going to be good.
In Charbonnet. I
am so invested.
The first thing, honestly, when I send this list, he's at 9 in my list, and as soon as I send in, I was like, I need to have him higher. So he will be higher when we do our big board episode. Like Samson a lot. Really, the only con I saw was the scheme transition. Just because of what Tennessee does, they face a ton of 5-man boxes, and that's simple. It's just not something that he's going to see at all at the NFL level. That's not what you run into. That's not the offense you're going to be in. So, and
is that a pro or a con?
That's a con.
Okay.
Because I think it's more translatable when it comes to running backs because he's still running the same concepts, the same reads. You just got to get used to more people there.
Yeah.
But it's still a question mark, I would say. But that's really the only con. He's a good player.
Fair. Moving it on to tier 4. We each are going to pick 2 players, one that we think will succeed and one that we think will not. One hit and one miss. One hit, one bust. So, Ryan, do you want to start us off by talking about Bashal Tutin? Because he's a Tyler and you and Tyler both have him day 2, but I have him day 3 or late round tier 4. So he's going to qualify for this category. Do you want to talk about which one of you wants to take Tutin and talk about why he's going to hit?
Ryan's got it.
All right. So I don't think Tutin performs at a high level at the NFL because of his skill set. I think he performs at a high level because he's a dynamic athlete. True burner that teams might look for really high in the draft. 4.32. He did struggle with fumbles. I don't know. I think he had like 10, but someone correct me if you have that off the top of your head. Could add 10 pounds. Absolutely. Definitely lightweight. I think that might help with like special team usage if he wants to be a kick returner, punt returner. And reduce snaps in a committee would be perfectly fine drafting him as a RB2 right there. I know I said don't draft Caleb Johnson as an RB2, but I actually said that Caleb Johnson could be a starter, taking over the starter role. So that's why I had him lower. But 3.74 yards after contact per attempt every season in his career. He was 4.18 on his career. And he lit up the combine. Some of the best measurables we've seen. And that just goes back into the amazing athlete. So, again, don't think he can hold his own just on his skill set. I think we're teams looking to draft it maybe like I would like to say borderline second, third rounder, but you're going to have to work on some things. It's not a project, but again, you're not drafting him for his talent. You're drafting him for his athletic ability.
Fair enough. Tyler, give me somebody you think will miss. Let's get negative.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sorry. Do you want, or I can flip it.
No, we can do it. I just wasn't prepared for this one. It hit me real hard just having to be this negative.
You can throw Ollie Gordon out there.
That's true. I don't have Ollie Gordon on my list. I think he'll be not a good player. It was just bad this year with Oklahoma State. He was very, very good 2 years ago. He was one of the way too early Heismans for this past year. It was thought to be that he might be the first running back taken in this class before the college season started. There was chatter about that.
And now the highest we have him is 14 on our rankings.
Right. It's because he didn't play very well. Now, I will say the whole Oklahoma State team didn't play very well, but just not super elusive. Another one of these guys that needs to get going in a straight line and didn't. And so very tough. A couple other ones I had in the negative. I just wanted to mention Kellel Mullings out of Michigan because he's a fun guy. He's a former linebacker that they converted to running back. So that one's fun, but is he going to be a running back in the NFL? Not super, super hopeful. And then Marcus Yarns, me and Ryan were talking about him earlier in our group chat. He's out of Delaware, an FCS team. So I think he has a role. Ryan is a little bit lower on him because he can catch the ball really well. Just could be a nice third down back, has some returner potential as well. And I think that keeps him on rosters. But I think he is volatile because he's 190. And, with him he's not going to be an every down back and some injury issues that could be on the horizon for him. That's what keeps him a little low. And I could see while I could see him having a role in the league, I could pretty much equally see him washing out in 2 years, if that makes sense.
Added to the fact that Delaware was FCS and just transitioned to FBS, so he was seeing smaller guys. And
they're joining CUSA now, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, just another reason Liberty should not have joined them. I'm still ticked. RJ Harvey is a guy I want to talk.
Almost a downgrade from Sunbelt, by the way.
It is. It really is.
Well, the Sunbelt is a clearly better conference than Conference USA.
I mean, Liberty just wanted to win. And now they're going to consistently win their conference if they can muster up a good team. RJ Harvey out of UCF is a guy I wanted to talk about. I think it may have been Field Yates on Twitter was the one who put me on him. Field Yates didn't DM me. He just posted about him. Harvey is small but elusive and fast and kind of that Darren Sproulsy-esque mold of not a big guy, but he is going to be excellent in the return game and is a receiving and elusive back. I like him. My other guy that I really like is Devin Neal out of Kansas, who 5'11", 213, another one of those guys that's like prototypical size, weight, and he's explosive. I don't know if it didn't translate to his 40. He ran a 4.58, which is not lovely. 1.59, 10-yard split, which is better than his actual 40 time. But he did get a 37.5 vert, 124 broad, which would be 10 feet 4 inches. That was quick math because it hit 120, and that is easy. But I like I just like his game. Like, plain and simple. I think he's the kind of guy that's going to be in the league for 10 years. He might suck. He might not be great at all, but I just think he'll have a job being a very balanced running back?
One of my diamonds in the rough. Tyler, I won't steal Damian Martinez from you. I'll let you go on him. But DJ Giddens is actually, I think, a good sleeper. Could be great ad, maybe late third, fourth round in fantasy. I don't know where he would project in the NFL, and I'm actually looking forward to see where he goes. Back-to-back 1,200 yard seasons.
12,000 yard running back seasons, wins Heisman.
Good after the contact, 4.16 per attempt in the final season. And then serviceable, again, that word serviceable as a receiver, 11 plus yards per reception every single season he played. And he has good size and weight and great combine measurables. So, again, one of those well-rounded guys that you could pretty much use anywhere on the field. I genuinely would feel comfortable taking him in the fourth round.
I'm looking at his measurables and like his combine stats. Fantastic 40, great 10-yard split, fantastic vert, great broad jump. It was a 10-10 broad, which is fantastic. And then he also ran the short shuttle and the 3-cone, and those just sucked. And I think I just feel bad for the guy because no one does those, and he did them, and he did bad. So Tyler, let's hit Damian Martinez. Then we got to move on to tight ends, guys.
Let's do it. I'll make it quick. Damian Martinez is way better than I thought he was going to be. He was a super productive guy his whole college career. He started off at Oregon State, transfers to Miami this past year, but he's just got a knack for squeezing between gaps right before they close. He's able to find them and get through them. Runs so hard. I sent you guys the 2 videos of runs he had against Louisville where he refuses to go down. There are multiple guys in the box that are trying to tackle him, and he throws them to the ground or runs them over and is able to keep moving forward. So that's the contact balance we talk so much about, and he has it. Pushes the pile, just overall runs really, really hard. He's another guy, you're not going to count on him to get these home run balls, but can get you first downs, can get you consistent yards. And so I think he's a guy I'm really high on. He's my 6th highest running back. He will firmly be inside my top 75. Really, really like Martinez.
All right, so that would be, there's a lot of running backs there. You can see, if you look up on the screen right now, those are our full rankings as they currently stand for running backs. There's quite a lot of guys here. I think a total of 20 to 21 different guys have made this ranking. But we're going to keep it trucking and move on right on to tight ends, where we have a very similar situation with our first 2 tiers. And that is Tyler Warren, tier 1 as a top 10 player, and Colston Loveland as a first rounder. All 3 of us agree. That is very rare for us to get an agreement on 2 tiers, and we've done it twice tonight. On two different positions. Unreal. So similar conversation. Let's talk Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and then did we ever think about putting Loveland ahead of Warren? My answer is no. But Tyler Warren, who is, I haven't seen a tight end like him in quite a while. It's kind of crazy.
So physical, electric with the ball in his hands, whether it was at Wildcat QB, dumping off to flatten an RPO, or even up the seam as he catches the ball and then starts running. I think what's so huge for him is he played quarterback in high school in Mechanicsville, Virginia, so about an hour from where we went to school, or 2 hours. And so it took him a little while to adjust the tight end position. He had a couple NFL guys in front of him. Theo Johnson last year got drafted out of Penn State. And the improvement he had from the West Virginia game I watched, which was the first game they played, to the Ohio State game I watched, into the college football playoff, he was a completely different player by the college football playoff. And that's what you want to see when it's a guy who had to develop from playing a completely different position to probably one of, if not the hardest position in football. He only had 1 drop all year. Really, really strong hands. You can do so much with him. And I think people are just overthinking the separating thing. I just think he separates. He does it with physicality for sure. It's not.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It's not this clean, I'm snapping you off like Matthew Golden, or how people stereotypically think of separation. But he gets on top of you. He's 260 pounds. You can't do anything with him. And so he breaks you off and creates separation. Tyler Warren's a really good player. He's a blue chip player for me in this class. Whichever team gets him is going to get a very good movable piece because he played 31% of the time in the slot, 25% of the time outside, and 40% of the time in line. You don't have to worry about him in any position in your offense. No. He can do it all.
Which is, there's some of these guys that we're going to talk about later are one-dimensional tight ends, where you're taking them to block, you're taking them to catch, you're taking them to be insert thing here. I love about something that's incredible about Warren is he is the only tight end where I feel truly comfortable in all aspects of the position. And it's awesome. Also, I've heard people want to give him the nickname the Mechanic for being from Mechanicsville and a guy who can do it all and fix everything for you. I don't think I hate it.
He would fix all of your issues on offense. He would be the focal point, like Sam Laporta-esque, Brock Bowers-esque, George Kittle-esque. But it's just a contested catch merchant. And even if the guys out there
Which is
in the media are like, he can't get any separation, he can. But if you want to use that argument, he still caught over 60% of his contested catches.
Yep.
Unheard of.
Yeah. So, I mean, Brian, you said contested catches, and that's not meant to be like contested catch derogatory. That is, okay, cool. He catches everything that's thrown at him. Yes. That is contested catch merchant complimentary.
And I could see him going very high. It's great to have a safety blanket on your team. I think some teams just lack one of those, i.e. Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love not having a good safety blanket beyond Josh Jacobs. So it's just someone will either move up in the draft for him if he slides, or he will go very high earlier than what some might expect.
Earliest I see him going is 7 to the Jets. I don't think he goes any higher than that, but they could use him. I think they would utilize him very well and get some of the heat off of Wilson and their running game. Moving on to Loveland, our tight end 2 consensusly via consensus.
Our consensus tight end 2.
There you go. Our consensus tight end 2 is 6'6", 250. He's tall. He runs fast. He is the epitome of an Evan Ingram type vertical field stretching receiving tight end. 500 yards at Michigan last year on an offense that was not very much loved.
Get it, Loveland?
Oh, nice. I love that.
That was because of quarterback play, though. Come on.
What hit the
his
offense?
Yardage? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Absolutely, it was. But that's what I'm saying. He managed to get 580 yards out of an offense that was subpar at best. So he was the best player on that team, and now he's transitioned to the NFL where he is consensus like going in the draft about like 20 to 25. So that's fantastic, and I have no issues with him as a receiving tight end. In the receiving game, I have no qualms with his game. It's where we talk about him as a blocker. And the other aspect of tight ends, that's the reason we have him behind Warren.
Yeah, I saw the same issues pulling up my notes here. Blocking needs some works in regards to standing up right off the snap. I saw some issues where he would kind of just jog out there, and he almost like churns his feet, and I don't really know how to describe it. He would not get from like point A to point B in a fashionable manner where he needs to get to his block, and that's concerning to me. So I'm looking for you to get low, get to where you need to be, and hit your man. And if you're not there, you're doing push-ups.
He's tall and he blocks tall, and he can't be doing that.
Which is why he's just not going to be blocking anybody in the NFL. Sure. It's a valid concern, and it limits where he can play. He's not going to be an inline tight end, or at best, you put him in line to have him split across the formation or chip or something where he's on the move blocking somebody, and he's blocking preferably linebackers.
Or heck, corners and get him moving across the formation to block out for a running back.
Right, because I did write down when he's in space, if he's blocking for a screen or something, or like an option pitch, he's decent at that, right? And he gets on some of the smaller players, and he's a real fluid mover, so he can get out and block guys there. But he's not going to be doing the Warren stuff where you have him on the line, he's double teaming with a tackle, and then moving on up to somebody. But man, can he move really well?
Yeah, he's great. A lot of people like him going to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, and is another one of those guys, or Jim Harbaugh in Los Angeles, formerly Michigan, because of that Michigan connection. But I think he could go. He's just a fantastic. If he falls out of the first round, I will be stunned. I think the lowest he falls is the Eagles, who could always take a number 2 tight end, with Goddard being a question mark right now in the last year of his contract. That was genuine. He's not falling out of the first round.
I know it's genuine.
The
Colston
smile.
Loveland is not going to the Eagles.
I know. I know. I agree. That's why I say he's not falling out of the first round. I was just
trying to throw it in the ether. Maybe he falls.
Legit.
Pick up
No,
Colston Loveland.
we got bigger issues to fry in Philadelphia, brother.
We have talked about / mocked 17 players to go to the Eagles at 32.
It's unreal. It's so bad.
I did
Elijah...
see on that. Sorry, before we move on, Daniel Jeremiah had him going to the Seahawks at 18, and I sneaky liked that. I think that fits in his range of where he is in this class as a prospect.
It also feels like a very quality move to help Darnold, and it's showing faith in your quarterback.
You help Darnold, and you just get better weapons because they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, they have Cooper Kupp. That's it. And so, while
Jake Bobo slander,
yes, while I think they have some more pressing needs in the interior offensive line, even I think a little bit you could go into their DB room as well. I wouldn't hate the Loveland pick. He would help them out a lot.
I will say if Donovan Jackson is available at their pick and they choose to take Loveland instead, I will be slandering the team to no end. Plain and simple. They need interior offensive linemen.
Don't worry, Donovan
2.
Jackson will go earlier.
Well,
day 2 tight ends. This is another group of we have one guy in tier 1, one guy in tier 2, and then between the 3 of us, Tyler has 5, I have 5, Ryan has 3. So this is a much larger group, and that means we're going to see a lot of tight ends go in rounds 2 and 3 on day 2 of the draft, at least according to us. Elijah Arroyo is a guy that Ryan has at 5, Tyler has at 3, and I was very hard-pressed not to put him in the first round because I love what he does. But I'm going to group him together for the sake of this conversation with Mason Taylor and Harold Fandon Jr., all of whom I have as the same archetype. They are safety blanket tight ends. Zach Ertz-esque mold, who, by the way, Zach Ertz coming out of college, 6'5", 249.
Aaron, what team did he get drafted to?
Irrelevant. I'm just talking about a tight end who is currently on the Washington Commanders.
Mm-hmm. Dude, guys, he was the tight end 9 in fantasy this year.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I tried to trade for him.
Just randomly. Late. I was like, oh.
Mason Taylor, 6'5", 251. And then you look at a guy like Elijah Arroyo, 6'5", 250. And then I'm going to see if I can find Harold Fandon Jr. within the next 30 seconds so this keeps flowing.
He's 230.
A little lighter, but I think he plays a similar role. But I want to talk, these guys, I would not be, I like Arroyo, 241. Okay. So within range, they are all these same, I would argue similar play styles as well. They're safety blankets. They're the guy who's going to get randomly 8 catches on a Sunday for, Ryan disagrees, but I'm going to keep going.
Okay, keep going. I'll get to it.
Okay, go. You've cut off conversation.
I think Mason Taylor's not as much of a receiving threat. He's going to be a volume tight end, but not a guy that you're going to see down the field.
That's my point. I think all 3 of these guys are volume tight ends who rarely could make an explosive play vertically. They are guys who you can see.
I think I might disagree.
Yeah,
on that.
Fandon and Arroyo are going to exceed at the NFL level down the field.
Okay.
Arroyo has multiple 60, 70 yard catch and runs. I was watching today against Georgia Tech. There's one. It's such a weird play because there's a guy that's in front of Arroyo who runs kind of a snag, and then Arroyo's running a seam. And I don't know if Cam Ward was throwing to the snag or the seam because it kind of hits off the guy's hand. Anyway, but it ends up in Arroyo's hands. And he runs away from all the Georgia Tech DBs. No one is able to catch him. He did the same thing against Florida, unfortunately. And he did it against, there was the other team, Louisville. He had another one, I think it was against Louisville, where he's running away from DBs. DBs can't catch this guy at 250 pounds. He is, I compared him to Colston Loveland light in the terms of the way he moves, just really fluid, really explosive. Good hands, only dropped 1 pass last year on the 40 targets he has, which I kind of put a note. I think that's more of a Ward thing. Well, Miami just had a lot of weapons in the passing game, but Cam Ward never really targeted tight ends in his career. Arroyo actually had more targets in 10 weeks than any other tight end playing with Cam Ward did at any point in his college career. So just to give you a snapshot of, hey, he might have not have been the most productive, but I think there's a reason for that that's outside of him. Pretty much the negatives are that he can't block And he played 5 games combined in his sophomore and junior season. He struggled with injuries and had, I believe it was an ACL, and then also struggled with injuries in this process. He got hurt at
I'm
the Senior
so
Bowl.
glad you brought it up, Tyler.
He didn't participate in the combine because he got hurt in the Senior Bowl. So he played all year this year, right, in terms of the college season. Basically, me having him at 3 is just crossing my fingers he doesn't get hurt. Because if he has the same injury issues that he had in college, he's not going to have an impact on an NFL team whatsoever. But if he stays healthy, the talent's there to be really, really good.
So
I will. Well, allow me to apologize. I should not have grouped all 3 of them as haphazardly as I did. So clearly, you 2 had issue with that. My apologies. That's my bad. No, I didn't expect to be the one listening to the Arroyo defense instead of making it on this pod, but I'll gladly take it. Ryan?
Tyler, you actually brought up 2 things that I had in my notes. That 74 yard catch and run touchdown against Georgia Tech. He hit a top speed of 21.8. So,
Dude, he can move.
Speed is not a concern with this guy. He light on his feet. It's astonishing that he can even hit that kind of speed at the tight end position. But the knee concerns. That injury really scares me. And that's one of the reasons I have Josh Simmons, one of your top players, so low on my board, is because when you're on the offensive line, I know he's not a great pass blocker, and you're not going to be using him in that sense most of the time. Knee concerns on the line are a major red flag because it is snap after snap after snap that you are putting all of your weight into that leg. And the fact that it happened in 2022 and he had to wait well into the 2023 season doing rehab is concerning. So that lengthy process is a little concerning on top of the fact that he tweaked it. I don't ever think we saw what he did at the Senior Bowl, but he was one of the biggest Senior Bowl risers. I think people had him as a day 3 pick. Again, he's only 5 for me because of the knee. I would have him at 3 with you guys if it wasn't for the knee. But great route runner, creates his own separation. It really just depends on the injury.
Mason Taylor, Zach Ertz type. Harold Fannin Jr. is light and explosive. Do we worry about his measurables at the next level? He did not have the best showing in this pre-draft process. He is a guy who tested at 240 or weighed in at 241, which is small for the position. 6'3", also small. Hand size and arm length could be a concern. He's in under the 30 percentile in both of those. 10-yard split was great, but his 40 time wasn't all that at 4.7. And then I did the wingspan at 78 and 7/8 inches. I mean, that's under 50% of tight ends. Are we worried about him as a full-on like size concern? Because Ryan, you're highest on him of the 3 of us.
Well, I remember we've had this conversation before, and much of that conversation was the small school part of it. And I actually had some stats ready to pull up, and I'll get to that in a second. But to answer your question, I would not be opposed to him changing positions, but I don't know what position you would change to because he's a 6'3", 240
accountant
tight end. And if he's running 4.7 at 240, you're not going to put him at wide receiver in hopes of him running a 4.5 if he drops 20, 30 pounds. That's just not what you're going to draft him for. You're going to put him on the line at occasion, maybe.
But
for
what I'm
nice
saying
chip.
is the other position he could play is insurance agent instead of accountant. I just don't know. You're right. He can't lose weight, which is why I'm saying I worry about him succeeding at the NFL level at this height and weight, which is, I think, his peak.
And that's a very valid concern. And that's actually why I moved him down, funny enough. I think I had him like 35, 36 before. I moved him down to 38. So a reasonable amount just because we finally got those measurables that I was looking for. And we finally got to the tight end episode. But to answer just a funny little skit, we were talking about the small school stuff. So I pulled up Tucker Kraft and Dallas Goedert. So in the order so that I don't have to keep repeating names, it's going to be Goddard, Kraft, Harold Fannin Jr. So best season yards per route run, 3, 2.38, and then 3.76. So Fannin wins that. Career yards per route run, 2.83, 2.33, 2.99. Fannin wins that one. Career yards after the catch per reception, 7.7, 6.6, 8.1. Fannin wins that. And then best season broken tackles. This is the big one. 12, 16, and 34. That is the most eye-catching of all the stats you could find that you could compare to. He's just a dude that gets upfield, can make guys miss, and even when he makes contact, he breaks the tackles. So big playability is there, explosiveness is there. But yes, Aaron, that is probably the biggest negative that you mentioned is his height and weight and his speed. I would say
everything
more
athletically.
it is the biggest red flag that you could have in someone. I don't know what team he would go to. I really don't have a comp for him either. So this might just be like a once in a lifetime kind of a deal.
So let me counter your statistics profile with this. I brought up the RAS scores of those two small school tight ends that you brought up: Dallas Goedert, Tucker Kraft. Dallas Goedert, SDSU, Tucker Kraft from also SDSU, and then Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. Dallas Goedert had a 9.48 RAS score with a height of 6'4", weight of 256, and a solid arm length at 34 inches. Tucker Kraft had a 9.68 RAS score, 6'4", 250, and arm length of 32 inches. Then we look at Harold Fannin Jr., 6'3", 240, 32-inch arms, 7.5 RAS score. So, cool. He did beat them in statistics. I'd argue that's more circumstantial than an actual argument for him in this draft class.
Yeah.
And that he does not have the athletic profile to succeed at the NFL level.
Well, the only reason I have him at 3 is by default because Mason Taylor's at 60 and Arroyo's at 68 because of the injury concerns. So it's not a shot at who's the better one because I think they're all pretty mid. And I mean, Fannin might have the best chance to start, in my opinion, just because I'm excluding Arroyo because of the injury. But I don't think Taylor's going to start. Fannin might.
By start, do you mean like tight end 1 or tight end 2?
Tight end 1 on like 5 or 6 teams.
Okay.
There's a very small niche for him, and I don't know what it is.
Somebody, I forget who it was, so I'm sorry for this, said he might be a Kyle Juszczyk, and that made a little bit of sense to me just in terms of you're going to put him everywhere, can run routes some, and then he fights as a blocker. So if you put him in very specific blocking roles, not, hey, just get your hand in the dirt and blow this guy off the ball, I think he can do it. And then
Juszczyk was 6'1", 240.
Yep.
Dude, I would make him a Taysom Hill if he could block, but he can't.
Yeah. So it's just tough because you go, hey, the athletic testing was not great for a slot receiver. And that's what he's going to have to be if he plays tight end. He's only going to play in the slot because he's not going to block in line. So it really is a tough one to see where he's going to go. He obviously has talent. All these guys that we talk about, situation matters for them. But there are a few guys where it matters a lot more. And I think Fannin is one of those.
Let's keep it trucking. I believe, how long do we have? Yeah, we should be getting out of here any minute now. Let's talk tier 4. So we each have a kind of different level of tier 4, but it's a few of the same guys. Is there anybody in that late tier? Let's go, Tyler, we can add our 6th and 7th best players as well. Is there anyone from 6 to 10 in tight ends who we think really has a chance to hit, to pop, be like fantasy relevant within 2 years? Ryan, you have a few different guys. Who are you thinking about? Or is it just meh?
So I'm a little lower, I think, on Ferguson than some. He's actually just
Terrence
outside.
Ferguson out of Oregon.
Yeah, he's just outside my top 100. For fantasy purposes, I could see him as a solid guy just from volume, maybe in like 3 to 4 years. I think I'm trying to think of like a good comp. Heck, we were just talking about Packers tight ends. That would be good. Just in an offense that would use him as just a volume tight end. Frick, who is Michael Mayer would be one, but like Ferguson doesn't block well. So like I genuinely, you got me like thinking off the top of my head, but can you even think of one? Just a good volume tight end?
In the NFL,
Yeah.
Ertz, the guy who
That's actually not bad. Yeah.
He set the catches record for the Eagles in those years where they didn't have a wide receiver to their name.
Yeah,
With,
I wouldn't be mad at that. He doesn't get to his spot quickly. Same thing that I was talking about for Loveland. Needs to get to point A to point B fast. Feet's fine, footwork's fine. I actually watched his combine videos because for tight ends, I think it's a little bit more important for footwork. But he takes some like really small steps. So I don't know what's happening there. But Ferguson was just one of those weird prospects that like I wasn't fascinated with, didn't fall in love with him. I don't know where you guys have him on your big board, but I'm not like straying away from consensus entirely.
I'm similar to you. You have him at 6, I have him at 7, and it's just a question of do I think he's a day 2 guy, and I do. Gunnar Helm was that weird one for me from Texas, and I was just playing college football the other day.
The combine.
Right, he was terrible, and college football gave him a 97 overall card in my team. I just saw it on like the front page, and that upsets me. He's not that good. Don't give him a 97. Plain and simple.
Wait, Gunnar Helm?
Yeah.
Dude, Gunnar Helm was a dog for Texas this year. He had the most catches on the team, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, still.
Safety net, terribly athletic.
Okay, well, did you see his ankle though? I'm not ready.
Oh, he blew it up.
I'm not ready to fully believe that he is that bad an athlete. He's not.
We don't know
by
when
no means,
he did it though.
By no means is he an elite athlete, but
I thought it happened on the 40. He hurt it doing the 40 the first time, and then they made him retest because there was a false start. Isn't that right? Like the first 40 time was
40. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
40
his
times was
entire process was screwed up because of
The
that.
whole thing. Yeah.
The only thing that we can really go off of is measurables. 6'5", 240, and an arm length of 32 inches. And that is a little below average, but I don't worry about it because he's a fantastic blocker, and he can catch anything thrown at him, which is what he did at Texas.
Sticky hands.
Right. Sticky hands, and he is, I think, an intellectual blocker. I don't know if he has the physical prowess to be an every down blocking tight end, or maybe like 2 at every other down blocking tight end, because you never know how you're going to use a tight end. But I do think he can get in there and he can make a hole, he can make a gap, he can help on a double team. I just worry about his ankle, and I worry about his overall ceiling instead of not his floor, which is why I have him at 6.
Do you think he starts?
In the NFL?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not going to play in college again.
I mean, I think he plays in the same level of NFL players as like a Jake Ferguson. I'm not comparing the two athletically or like stylistically, but in the way that we'll always talk about Jake Ferguson as like a late round fantasy tight end. Yeah. I think Helm could be there. A starting tight end in a bad situation where you're like semi-satisfied of him as a starter.
Serviceable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he could start in the league for sure.
I agree.
Really reliable catcher of the football, fine blocker, and he really doesn't mind getting hit. That was one thing that stood out to me on film is he took some shots. Ewers threw him some hospital balls, and he would come down with them or still keep going up for him. So got a good feel for the game. Really, the big word that I had for him is reliable as a tight end, which is something quarterbacks love.
Yeah. That is there anybody else that we want to hit before we get out of here?
Nope.
Dude, everyone else in the tight end class is just irrelevant.
There's pigeonholed. Jackson Hawes is a fun player to watch because he just mauls people blocking from Georgia Tech, but he's just going to be a second blocking tight end in the league. So
if you need a tight end, draft one within the first 6.
I always say tight ends are a luxury, especially in fantasy football. If you got a good tight end, keep them.
And it's going to be a luxury in this class as well. Thank you all for watching or listening to the Mind the Gap podcast. We will be back next Monday. We're little housekeeping. I should have done this at the top of the show, but oh well. Maybe this will just be edited into the top of the show. But a little bit of housekeeping. There is no longer going to be a Thursday show. We're not going to be recording on a Thursday. I think that usually gets out Friday, Saturday, depending on editing. So we're going to be recording once a week on Monday. We're going to figure out what we're doing on the NFL draft later. But stay tuned to our socials for an upcoming website, articles if they're going to be coming, because they will be coming soon. We have yet to do linebackers. That will be an article. Go check it out when it comes out. I believe that's it. So yeah, let's get to the show. And you're going to hear that at the beginning of the show, and it's going to feel really weird hearing it twice. Thank you all for listening. Mind the gap on your way out.